In this video, I wanted to discuss the use of sunset clauses in California legislation. Sunset dates are common in a lot of legislation across the country. California is not an outlier at all. The purpose of a sunset clause obviously is to repeal or sunset a law on a specified date. As a result, when the California legislature enacts a bill to either extend or eliminate the sunset date, otherwise the law will expire or sunset if the legislature doesn't enact another bill. Sunset dates often extend anywhere from 1 to 3 years to as long as 10 to 12 years, depending on the particular statute in question. These sunset dates, sometimes called expiration clauses in other jurisdictions, are generally used to allow the legislative branch in particular to revisit a statute, maybe to check on how the law is being implemented by the executive branch or how it's being interpreted. Sunset dates are used primarily by the states. Congress rarely uses them. One of the few examples offhand is the Federal Patriot Act, for one of the few instances where the federal government has used a sunset provision. There are a number of other instances when the legislature may want a statute to be temporary in application. For example, legislation that's viewed perhaps as an experiment or it's being tried for the very first time. The legislature might want to check back within a few years to see how the law's been working before they decide to make the law permanent. In addition, sometimes controversial legislation may be established with a sunset date as a possible compromise with the opposition. In other words, the legislature may choose to give a contested bill, an opportunity to prove itself. A sunset clause may also be appropriate when a law is necessary to address a temporary situation or to fulfill some sort of, short-term need, maybe in a state of emergency or an economic disruption of some sort. And the legislature may also impose a sunset date to ensure that a review is triggered before the statute is going to be extended or made permanent. In California, we generally see a sunset or repeal date in the form of this section or this chapter shall remain in effect until, say, December 1, and as of that date is repealed. Sometimes we see a second version of a sunset date, and that is this section shall become inoperative on, say, July 1, 2023, and as of January 1, 2024 is repealed, or you might just see that it becomes inoperative. Note that for purposes of drafting, the sunset date is almost always placed at the end of the code section or the chapter that's being amended or that's ultimately being sunset. As a result, the bill drafter also needs to ensure that the sunset clause correctly refers to either a section or a chapter or an article. There are, again, two methods to creating a sunset date. One is to make the provision inoperative, and the other is to repeal it. What's the difference, you would ask? Making the provision of law inoperative means that that statute or that code section remains on the books, but it's not in effect. On the other hand, a repealed provision means the provision is actually taken off the books entirely, and obviously because it's been repealed, it's not in effect either.